Hello, and thank you all for listening in. As usual, before we begin, I'd like to remind everyone that what is being presented is based on logical reasoning and an extensive use of the notions of cause and effect as the fundamental law that governs all produced things. Now, this is being said, once again, to ensure that you use your own critical and logical thinking and to be aware of any rational thought that might object, and to try thinking about it before discarding the idea. Therefore, the teaching will try to follow logical reasoning, so if something is not clear, please feel free to send your thoughts and questions to guide@personalmeditationguide.com. Now, before we begin the second part of the series on anger, let us all start by a meditation to calm the mind and clear the mind, so that our mind is completely present when listening to the teachings, instead of thinking of everything else we might have to do, or wanting to look at our phones, or anything else. So our mind is completely present in this teaching and concentrating on it. So please take a comfortable meditation posture in which you can be both relaxed and alert. Make sure that your back is straight, but not tense. Place your hands in your lap and partially close your eyes. Now just take a few moments to let all the tensions in your body and in your mind fall away. And now, create a positive intention or motivation to use this meditation to calm your mind, to pacify your mind, so that it benefits yourself. And now you can gently bring your attention at the tip of your nostrils, at the sensation of coolness as you inhale and warmth as you exhale. Do not try to control your breathing. Just engage the tactile sensation of the breath at the tip of your nostrils. Let the feeling of coolness and warmth pervade your mind, and let every other thought and feeling dissolve. And if your mind wanders, then gently and peacefully bring your mind back to the sensation of the breath at the tip of your nostrils. And now, imagine that your mind is like the sky, and that all your thoughts and feelings and any other mental activity are like clouds. Just as clouds form and disperse within the sky, your thoughts and feelings appear and dissolve within your mind. So just come to see how your thoughts and feelings appear and dissolve. Do not hold on to anyone in particular, just watch. And just as when all the clouds disperse to reveal the clarity of the sky, which is empty like space, free from obstruction, and limitless, so let all the thoughts and feelings dissolve to reveal the clarity of your mind, which just like a clear blue sky is empty like space, free from obstruction, and limitless. And once you have found the experience of the clarity of your mind, meditate on it and enjoy the peace of mind that it evokes. And if your mind wanders, so whatever thought or feeling arises, just like a cloud, let it dissolve, let it disperse, to come back to the clarity of your mind, which is just like a clear blue sky. Now, before rising from meditation, make a determination to maintain this clarity of mind and this peace of mind, so that it influences everything you think, say, and do. And now you can gently rise from meditation. So in this second part, we're going to explore why we get angry, and we're going to explore the antidote, which we're going to call patience. So to reduce and finally eliminate our anger, we need to tackle the problem from two sides. First, we need to gain a clear understanding of the many problems of anger, which was explained in the first part of the series, identifying that this poisonous state of mind and not external people or circumstances are our real enemy. So this recognition will bring about a motivation to really free ourselves from anger as soon as possible. As was explained, if we discovered that we had accidentally swallowed a poison, we would urgently try to remove it, try to get rid of it, because we understand that the poison is really harming us. Although anger actually harms us much more than any physical poison could actually do, because it reaches into every sphere of our life and perpetuates throughout all our life until we die. So therefore, our desire to eliminate our anger needs to be very, very strong. We need to really strengthen it. And this is done by continually meditating on the faults of anger. So we could do this by repeating part 1, just re-listening to it over and over again, if necessary, or just by doing the meditation at the end, until we get a deep conviction that anger is the problem and not our external circumstances or people. And secondly, which is this part of this series, is we need to get a deep understanding of why we get angry, and then work to counteract it and eliminate the causes that we'll uncover. So ultimately, which we're going to be seeing in future series, is the root cause of anger, which is really due to the way we perceive external circumstances and people. We seem to see them and feel them to be independent from our mind, as if they have their own existence, their own qualities, independently of our mind actually projecting. So in order to change this perspective, which is deeply entrenched, we're going to have to explain it a lot more. But for now, because we're in the topic of anger, there's some more immediate causes that we could be talking about to directly oppose anger. But all of these will work together, but we have to start somewhere. Therefore, this is why we need to start at the more immediate causes of anger, understanding it, and once we have lifted up some of the veil of anger in our life, it will become easier for us to understand the next parts, to understand these other belief systems in our mind where we tend to want to believe that everything out there has its own qualities, they're good, they're bad, and things are absolute. As opposed to understanding that it really is our mind, there's a dependency with our mind that projects these qualities onto these things. And we're going to get into that topic in a much more deeper fashion in future series. But for now, let's get to the immediate causes of anger, which is worth concentrating on at the moment. So once again, we have to look at what anger is. And really, anger, as explained in the first part, is following an unpleasant feeling, and we see only faults in the object or circumstance, and we wish to harm it. As we can understand from that definition, the prior cause, or what brings about this anger, are these unpleasant feelings. And where do these come from? these unpleasant feelings. Usually it comes from when our desires are not being fulfilled, or that we were forced into a situation we dislike. Basically, it's when we have to put up with things that we rather not. And it's as simple as that. There's like a rejection. There's a pushback in our mind that's saying, I don't want that. I would rather wish it to be something else. And we'll get into the subtleties of understanding this, but at the core of anger, there's this mind that is rejecting. There's a pushback on reality. So it's important to understand this in order to see, again, to see it coming. To see it when in our mind when there's this pushback on reality. Because we want things to be different than what they are. And if left uncontrolled, this rejection part, this is where we could see that it can turn into anger. Because then we're going to want to change this external circumstance. Because we're rejecting it. We don't want it to be. And we'll try to eliminate that external cause. As opposed to understanding the dynamic of our mind in relation to that external cause. So it's a very useful exercise to try and examine the types of situations in which we get angry. So that we learn to look at our mind. We learn how our mind reacts. And we'll probably find, like we were saying, that anger arises when our desires are not being met. We don't get what we want, basically. For example, let's say our partner, they refuse to see us, or they leave us for someone else. This unhappiness can easily turn into rage. So it's important to learn new ways of relating to these disappointing and unpleasant circumstances. Because it is really unreasonable to expect that all our wishes can be fulfilled. Basically, we need to cultivate a more realistic view, a more realistic and balanced approach to these unpleasant circumstances. So those in relation to people. Another often occurrence that we become unhappy is when we're faced with a situation we don't want or we don't like. I mean, every day we encounter hundreds of situations we don't like. It could be as simple from stubbing our toe to having a disagreement with our partner, or maybe a bit more intense as discovering that our house burned down or we got stolen, or if we go a bit further, that we have cancer. And what would be our normal reaction to these things? Do we become unhappy? Do we become angry? And no matter how much we try to prevent these unpleasant things from happening to us, we know we cannot guarantee that they won't happen. So the probability is not zero. But in our mind, we want to believe they are. We want to believe that in no chance are these unpleasant circumstances going to arise. As if, no, it won't happen to me. But if we look at our own personal lives and our own personal experiences, how many unforeseen, unpleasant circumstances have arisen for us? Remember, they were unforeseens. We didn't control that they would happen, yet they did. So this realization, just to look at our personal experiences, just helps us realize that maybe our view of reality is warped. Meaning we really don't have a realistic view about what can happen. That we always think that good things might happen or this won't happen to me. But in fact, they can, and we have no control over it. So basically, we really can't guarantee that nothing today will happen. So nothing bad today will happen. Basically, we can't even promise that we'll be alive to see the end of the day. Really, we're not in control of what happens to us. We want to believe we are, but if we look at our past, look at our experiences, and look at it honestly, we could actually come to see that we weren't in control. There was a lot of unforeseen circumstances that have occurred. Now, why this is important to get a more realistic view is because we come to understand that it's really impossible to fulfill all our desires and to really stop unwanted things from happening to us. So why this is important is because we need a new solution. We have to stop believing that we could have complete control over our external circumstances and the people around us. It's like we have to let go of that illusion that we have control over these things. And that's one of the biggest parts. That's one of the biggest difficulties that we might have. But this can only be done by contemplating it logically and reasonably and realistically, and no longer to paint ourselves a portrait of what reality should be or what we want it to be. And why this is important is that once we let go of the idea that we can control everything externally, it leaves us to only one solution, because we might end up with a thought, well, there's no other solution. And we might become depressed from that. If I have to let go of the control I have over my external circumstances, then what's left? And what we sometimes fail to see is that we could have control over our mind. But this too eludes us sometimes to believe that our emotions are also out of our control and our mind is also out of control, as if we have nothing to do. We can't do anything with regards to them. That everything is based solely on our external circumstances. That there's nothing coming from our own side, from the side of our mind. And this comes from a very entrenched view that it's our external circumstances that cause all these feelings. And basically that's what we're trying to unwrap. That's what we're trying to debunk, is to see that, no, we have more control over our mind than we believe. We have this control. And therefore, by letting go of the thought that we can control, so by accepting the thought that it is impossible to control our external circumstances, what we have left is our inside. Basically, what's not external. And we go by just logical reasoning. Not external, we end up with internal. So if the solution is not external, then let's try looking internally to see if there's a solution there. And this is where we can find a different way to relating to unforeseen events, unpleasant and unwanted occurrences, by changing the way we look at things. So what we really need to learn is patience. Now, what is patience? And we need to define it, otherwise it becomes a word that is vague and it could have many connotations, many understandings, and we don't really know what to do with our mind when we say patience. And we could have different understandings depending on our upbringing and our culture and traditions. So what we're going to do here is try to define one. So give a definition to patience. And to try to adopt this new definition, so that it becomes clearer of what needs to be done within our own mind. And so that's what we're going to do right now. So patience is a mind that is ready to accept fully and wholeheartedly whatever occurs. But we have to understand that it's more than just gritting our teeth and putting up with things and dealing with things. Really, being patient means to welcome wholeheartedly whatever arises. And we have to give up the idea that things should be other than what they are. Basically, that's a very important part. We have to give up the idea that things should be other than what they are. Why this part is so important is because it tells us what we should be doing in our mind. We're letting go. And what are we letting go of? We're letting go of desires. We're letting go of ideas that want something else from this current circumstance. And what's important about the way we're presenting patience right now is in relation to time. Past, present, and future. And what's important here is that we're taking a realistic view. That means that we could fully accept everything. So basically, it's always possible to be patient. Why? Because if we're taking it in the aspect of past and present, it automatically means that we cannot change anything. From a cause and effect perspective, the past and the present are effects. That means they have already arisen. If they have arisen, there's nothing we can do to change them. We cannot travel in the past and change those circumstances. We cannot change what has happened. That's why from that perspective, taking in the aspect of past and present, we can see that there's no situation that we cannot accept. And there's an old proverb saying, "Don't cry over spilt milk." This is a very simple proverb to demonstrate that very aspect of your mind. Saying that we should accept the milk was spilt. And this is my current situation right now. This is where I'm at. And we usually don't want to accept where we're at and what has happened. And yet those things cannot be undone. So we have to understand how patience comes into play with regards to time. And we're going to be talking about the future, how patience comes into play with regards to future circumstances. But we have to understand the basic premise here that right now, and whatever has happened, I can find patience. I could fully accept wholeheartedly the situation. And basically, we've let go of the idea that the past should have been different, and the present, where I am standing right now, should be different. Saying that comes to realize that it cannot. This is where I am right now, where I'm standing. Now, if I want to change where I'm at with regards to the future, meaning I have plans to change the future, that's something else. The future has not been written yet. So it depends on the causes we create at the present moment. But by accepting where we stand, by accepting where we are standing, we're more likely to make the right decisions. It's as if asking someone who is at point A to go to point C. But the person is making plans from leaving from point B. And there's a whole step that's missing from point A to point B. And this is what we usually feel. We wish we would be someplace else. We wish we would be at another level before getting to the next one. And therefore we miss what we need to do right now to even get to the first step. So this is not a realistic view. And this stems from us not accepting, not being patient with what has happened and what is occurring right now, the present moment. Only then will we be able to make the right steps to go forward. Because otherwise our plans don't make sense. We're making plans to leave from another location or another time, another circumstance, which if we look at it from a planning perspective, does not hold up. So the same goes for our mind. And this is where this definition of patience takes real meaning for us. If we adopt this definition and we bring it to heart, we remember it, and we repeat it to ourselves over and over again. And this will help us gain a more realistic view of the world. And we could see that when patience is really heartfelt, when we have completely and wholeheartedly accepted what is, that there's no room for unhappy thoughts. There's no space for unhappy thoughts to arise because we stopped wishing for it to be different. So by letting go of that wish, there's no foothold, there's nothing, there's no basis for unhappy and unpleasant thoughts to arise. So we could understand again through cause and effect that we've stripped away the causes and conditions for the effect to arise. So the effect of unhappiness and anger cannot arise in those conditions. We've stripped it away from the fuel, which is coming from our wishes, our uncontrolled wishes that want things to be different than what they are. And we could look around and see many, many examples of people who have managed to practice patience, even in the most extreme circumstances. We could see individuals that under torture or the final ravages of cancer, they remained peaceful, even though their body was ruined beyond repair. Deep down, they remained peaceful and happy. So we could get inspired by these examples to see that our own struggles might be insignificant. We could use those to put our own problems into perspective, to see how even in the most extreme circumstances, individuals have found peace of mind. And yet, where are we? Can we do the same? So we need to use these examples to inspire us, to say if they can do it in those extreme circumstances, I can do it in the circumstance that I'm in right now. I can. And we find this inspiration and this motivation to try and put this into practice. And we could do this simply at the beginning. Just take all our difficulties, those little difficulties that we encounter every single day. We could use them as practice. What are we using them for? Do we just keep getting angry, keep going into the unpleasant feeling, and keep encouraging these wishes that want these things not to happen? Or do we use these little opportunities to gain traction, to grow our patience? Because it's easier to practice on the small stuff, so that when the big things happen, our mind is ready, our mind is trained, our mind has had practice. And this is how we go about things, since there's many, many opportunities in our daily life to practice patience. We encounter many, many difficulties, little ones, that might seem insignificant after the fact, but at that moment, we do wish it not to be the case. We have this anger, this unpleasant feeling that arises, and then this anger that arises, all coming from the wish, wanting it to be different. And gradually, as our capacity for patience increases, we will actually know for ourselves the freedom and the joy that comes from patience. And we need to make it personal. We need to experience this firsthand. So we need to try. This is our own experiment. These words are just words if they're not put into practice, if they're not tried, so that you could see for yourself that it works. And if we practice patience, we can maintain a peaceful mind even when we're experiencing pain. Because pain is not suffering from its own side. And this again, we've seen many examples where people are in pain all the time, yet they still remain peaceful and happy. This comes to show that pain from its own side is not the cause of suffering. The cause of our suffering comes from the wish of not wanting that pain. In that case, we're creating an additional problem for ourselves. Not only do we have the pain, but now we're in mental anguish as well, because we don't want this pain. Yet maybe we don't have a choice to experience this pain. So we could see that if we maintain this peaceful and positive state of mind, this is only done by remembering the definition of patience and remembering what to do. And in this case, unhappy minds won't have the base to arise. So we have to understand this. We have to think about this over and over again. And we've probably heard this online. Maybe we've even seen some graphs, some diagrams that shows this. But this is a basic logical truth. Basically, it goes something like this. There's many variations out there. But if there's a way to fix an unwanted and unpleasant circumstance, then what's the point being unhappy? What's the point getting angry? Because it could be changed. So therefore we could do something about it. Now, if there's a situation that is unpleasant, that cannot be remedied, and no matter what we wish for, it cannot be remedied. Once again, what is the purpose of being unhappy? What is the purpose of getting angry? What is the purpose of maintaining the wish that things should be other than what they are? And it cannot be remedied. So therefore, the only way to find peace of mind is through acceptance, through patience. And for the first part, if we can change something, then with patience we try. And we accept along the way the path necessary to do those changes. And this is where it comes to understand that patience is not a passive mind. It doesn't mean we don't take practical steps to improve the situation. Not at all. If it is possible to remedy the situation, if it is possible to do something about the situation, then we do something about it. But there's no need to become unhappy and angry. For example, if we have a headache, there's no contradiction between practicing patience and taking medication. It just means that until the medication takes effect, we accept the discomfort that we feel. So this is the same thing on bigger situations. We take practical steps to fix or to change the external circumstance. But along the way, at every step, we're patient. We accept what is happening. We accept, and this way we could actually course correct better because we're in total acceptance of what has happened, of what is happening right now. There's never a circumstance where we cannot practice patience. Now, there are many, many occasions when it is easy to develop an unhappy and angry mind. Just look at our experiences. Take, for example, when ourself, our family, maybe our friends are mistreated or blamed, or they're experiencing some sort of misfortune. How do we normally react? By becoming unhappy? What about when our relationships are difficult? When we have financial problems or health problems? Or maybe when we lose something that's important to us? What about when we're lonely? Or we can never find time alone? Or when we can't find work, or maybe we have too much work? When our dreams or our wishes remain unfulfilled? Or once they are fulfilled, they leave us feeling hollow and dissatisfied? Or when we fail? What about if our success brings more stress than we could bear? What about when people we dislike are successful? Really, the list is endless. We need to look in our mind to see at all the circumstances that bring us unhappiness and see the wish that is rejecting it. We have to try to find this underlying wish that says, I don't want it to be that way. I wish things were different. And all these feelings, this feeling of unhappiness and this rejecting part, makes us feel that life is unfair, and it could depress us even more. So we have to learn to find this rejecting mind, this wishing mind that says, I want it to be different. So it takes some practice, because these rejections could be subtle, especially the way we might be formulating them. But we have to be keen on trying to do so. And as we were saying, patience is not a weak or passive mind. And it doesn't mean we don't take steps and we don't have courage to actually solve the problem. Actually, this definition of patience brings us even more courage. It's really far from being passive, because there's really nothing courageous about reacting to hardship or insult with anger. Really, all that's happening is that we're being defeated by our uncontrolled mind. Our uncontrolled mind is winning the battle. Basically, we're stuck in these negative habits of mind that take over us, and they make our lives miserable. This does not bring us strength. We're actually being defeated by them. And sometimes we might see that anger gives us strength to do something. It forces us to change something. But changes could be done, and practical steps can be done without anger. Like we were saying, there's no contradiction between taking practical steps to change the external circumstances, all the while being patient and accepting what is. There's no contradiction there. But usually what happens is we take these practical steps, and throughout taking these practical steps, we remain angry, we remain miserable. Where is the logic in that? How does that make sense? So on the other hand, if we stand up to our anger, if we stand up to our negative states of minds and refuse to fall into these negative patterns, don't you think that is a much stronger stance? A much stronger and active stance? So in reality, most of our emotional problems are nothing more than a failure to accept things as they are. In that case, patience, rather than attempting to change the external circumstances, is the first solution. We must first calm our mind, because acting out of anger will only increase our behavior in the future to react out of anger as well. So the first thing we must start doing whenever we feel this anger arise, whenever we feel this rejection arise and these unpleasant feelings arise, we could go as early as possible to find it arising in our mind. That should be our first line of action. That's what we must start doing first. We must calm our mind before acting. Acting out of anger will only increase the chances of us making mistakes and regretting the things we do. Let's take some examples. For instance, let's say in a relationship, when problems arise and we're not accepting our partner. And we know that in this situation, the solution is not to change our partner and try to make our partner to be another person, another way. And that would be the only way, instead of accepting them fully, accepting how they're acting right now. So there are many levels of patience and acceptance. Maybe we already try to tolerate some of our partner's idiosyncrasies, or maybe we refrain from criticizing them, or maybe we just go along with their wishes most of the time. But what is really in the depths of our heart? Did we really stop judging them? Did we really let go of the wish that they could be different? Are we free from resentment? And are we free from blaming? Is there still a subtle thought in our hearts that wishes they could be different? So we have to understand that true patience is about letting all these go. We have to let go of all these negative thoughts, all these thoughts that wish that they could be different, no matter at what level, no matter how small it is, because a small little thought of rejection could easily build and give rise to many more. It's like a little flame that, if left unchecked, could cause a forest fire in our mind. So we might as well snuff it out, that flame, as fast as possible, so that we maintain a peaceful and happy mind and have the ability to help those around us. And so once we really accepted other people without the slightest judgment or reservation, then you'll see that there will be no basis for problems to arise with them. Our relationship with others will flourish, will be easier, will be harmonious, even though the other person is feeling angry and is screaming. So we have to come to understand that these problems don't exist outside our mind. This is the important part. We stop seeing other people as problems. And basically, they stop being problems. It's as simple as that. If we stop seeing them as problems, they stop being problems. And we know that when we're being accepted, it feels very different than from when we're being judged. When we're being judged, how do we react usually? We become defensive. We tighten up. We tense up. Whereas if we're not being judged, what happens? We relax. We have space to relax and open up and allow our good qualities to shine. So we have to understand that patience always solves our inner problems. And it actually often solves problems outside. But first and foremost, we need to change our mind. We have to relinquish the idea that we need to control everything externally first. We have to learn patience first. We have to learn to fix our mind first, to react differently first. And then we start looking to the externals. Yes, we could do both at the same time, but it's very extremely important to keep check on our mind. And if anger arises, the first thing we do is calm our mind, find patience. We let go. We find a wish that is causing this anger. We find a wish that is rejecting, that's saying no. And we let patience in to our mind. We know that rejection is like driving with the handbrake on. How does it feel? You're accelerating, yet there's something holding you back. And there's tension. And we know that if we continue doing that, we could actually break something. Anger in our mind is like this handbrake on life. We're going through life so stressfully, harmfully, with so much tension. And it hurts us. So we need to let go. We need to start accepting what is. And once again, and it's always important to repeat it to ourselves, it does not contradict taking practical steps to remedy our current situation going forward. So in this ending meditation, we're going to just contemplate over and over again the definition of patience until we become convinced that there's no situation bad enough that we cannot be patient. That's the heartfelt experience that we're trying to cultivate in this meditation. That there's always a way of finding patience because it involves letting go of the wish that things should be other than what they are. And once we have found that understanding, that recognition, the next part of the meditation will be to create a strong determination to try and apply it in our life, to try and remember and apply it in our daily lives, to try and apply it in our daily difficulties, on the little ones, so that we practice, so we make this decision for ourselves. And once we found this decision, this determination that says, I'm going for it, I'm trying, I am going to try to practice patience in my life, and I'm going to try and remember this definition, then that's what we hold in our heart. That's the experience we hold, and we meditate on that experience. And if we lose this experience, we come back to the recognition that there's no circumstance bad enough that patience cannot be practiced. It is the cause of our inner peace and happiness. And therefore we come back to the motivation and the determination to practice it in our daily life. So please take a comfortable meditation posture in which you can be both relaxed and alert. Make sure that your back is straight but not tense. And now contemplate the following. Patience is a mind that is able to fully accept wholeheartedly whatever occurs. We don't just grit our teeth and put up with things. To be patient means to welcome wholeheartedly what is. And we give up the idea that things should be other than what they are. Once again, patience is a mind that accepts fully and wholeheartedly whatever occurs. It's not just about dealing with things, putting up with things, and gritting our teeth. Patience means to welcome wholeheartedly whatever is, whatever has happened. And it is about letting go of the idea that things should be different, that things should be other than what they are. So contemplate that over and over again until you get a clear understanding that you've redefined patience for yourself. And once you have this clear understanding, keep it to heart. Feel the experience of this understanding. How liberating it is to understand patience. Feel this understanding. From this understanding, come to see that it is always possible to be patient. That there's no circumstance and situation so bad that cannot be accepted patiently. And now, with this understanding that we can always practice patience, no matter what circumstances arises, make the determination, the strong decision in your life to try and put it into practice, to try and remember this definition, to keep it to heart, and to try and practice it in your daily life. Make yourself that promise, make yourself that determination to try and practice on the little things in your daily life. To keep practicing and training to develop this peaceful mind, this happy mind. And this way, it guards you from feeling unhappiness and anger. So once you've found this determination, this decision in your life, keep that experience in your heart. Try to make it as strong as possible, this decision that you will practice patience in your daily life. And if your mind wanders, come back to the beginning if necessary, from the definition to the understanding that it is always possible to practice patience, back to the determination and the decision to practice it in your daily life. And now, before rising from meditation, dedicate all the positive energy and wisdom you have accumulated here to each and every living being. You can imagine those close to you, family and friends before you, and give them this energy so that they receive all the benefits of your training and realize the importance of keeping and practicing patience. And rejoice in giving them this energy and this wisdom. Now, at your own pace, you can gently rise from meditation.